How's it going, everyone? I'm Jason, and this is No Perspective Sports. And nights. I'm recording this a little bit later in the evening, and so it's looking really dark. But I kind of like the aesthetic. It's kind of nice, just the white source of light, no natural light. So it's like kind of you have to look at me. You can't look back here because it's too dark to see. So we have a little bit to talk about today. First week of preseason is has gone through. It's over now, and I try to consume as much football as I can in that time. Uh, there's only so much preseason that you can watch before you realize that it's kind of like sucralose, where it's like not, it's just sweetener. It's not actually sugar, and sugar is fun to eat a whole bunch. If you eat a lot of sweetener, it's not that good because it gets to you after a while. I feel like after I chew, because a lot of gums have sucralose or what is it, orbitase, something like that, and it's just not the same as nice pure cane sugar. So that's what preseason feels like. It's good for a few, for a little bit whenever you don't have real sugar, but you're always craving that real sugar afterwards. All right, but I did enjoy watching a lot this weekend, especially after months of not having anything, and only eating broccoli, which is just real life. Is all your greens. All right. So before we get into the preseason stuff, which we'll do pretty soon, I wanted to talk about some things that I forgot about the Tom Brady topic that I talked about in the last episode. So the Tom Brady recap, what happened with him. He's not showing up to preseason. He's not showing up to camp, and he won't play. He didn't play in this past preseason game, and it's not likely he will play in the next preseason game either. And that's something that apparently they've talked about with the coaching staff and everything, that he would leave for personal reasons. And I just forgot that Tom Brady is also, I even spoke about it, the Dolphins tampering punishment that they had to go through. I talked about that in the last episode, but I didn't even think to make the connection that Tom Brady is now taking a break for, like a 2-week sabbatical as soon as they announce the tampering stuff, where the Dolphins were trying to acquire Tom Brady illegally. Not illegally, but against NFL policy. And so I didn't even think to make that connection between what if he's leaving because, like what if he's taking a sabbatical to try and, negotiate something with the NFL? Because I figured he would probably get punished too, because he's still in the league and he took part in the tampering, even though he was a player. I think it's a thing that I think it's a thing that could definitely happen. It's something that we might want to watch, pay attention to, because I'm not sure. It's still very vague as to why he left, and so if that's a possibility, that's something we want to watch and follow up on. It was just a small little thing. So now, let's get into the preseason stuff. So I've got a few topics to talk about on the preseason thing. Why do I feel like I had more? All right. So I mainly watched the Texans game, and I couldn't even watch that much of it because I was working at the time that it was going on, and so I had to catch the highlights. And the preseason game for the Texans was eventful. It was kind of interesting. I mean, it's only as interesting as watching 3.5 quarters of Jeff Driscoll can be. Uh, you know, that's the bummer. We didn't even get to see Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen, we saw, was a starter 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I think it was three. And he just isn't. He definitely is not a starter nowadays because, just his play is not at the same level. But we didn't even get to see him play this preseason game. We had to watch the third string Jeff Driscoll, who I think started this training camp listed as a tight end, but now he's kind of the emergency backup quarterback. He was trying to switch over to tight end, kind of like Tim Tebow did. That's sort of everybody's last resort if they're a quarterback who's falling out of the league, is to try and be a tight end. I guess now they could probably go join the USFL or the XFL and maybe work their way back up into the NFL. But yeah, as long as they can stay in the NFL, even if it's as like the last tight end on the list, they'll try that. But yeah, watching Jeff Driscoll was at least somewhat entertaining They did get 2 touchdowns in the game and a field goal, so 17 points. The Saints scored 13 points. I don't really care who wins, and it doesn't really matter who wins because it's a preseason game, and it doesn't matter too much to see that someone else won over someone else. It was the game-winning drive for the Texans was interesting because they had to go all the way down the field and score a touchdown. They were down 13-10, and so I guess they had the incentive to try and win, so they can kind of see how the Texans will execute in a sort of end of the game scenario. Of course, it is all third stringers, and people competing for a roster spot. But still, it's good to have that information from those guys to see if you really need to switch somebody in, how they perform in the pressure. Now, the biggest things from preseason, the biggest things I was watching, I wanted to see more. I just wanted to see more Davis Mills. For one, we didn't get too much more. He played two drives, and he only threw 3 times for 14 yards. And he just didn't do anything. They couldn't even get a first down with him. I think both drives had penalties that pushed them back, and so then they just stalled out really quick. They were just 3 and outs, and then he was out of the game. Which, that's not terrible. It is preseason. Don't want anybody to get injured. We saw what happened to Zach Wilson just a few hours earlier, where he ran in the first. It was in the first quarter, and he ran for like 8 yards and blew out his meniscus. I think it was tore his meniscus, and so he might even miss week 1. He's definitely going to miss the rest of training camp / preseason. But the big things else besides Davis Mills that I was watching for was the rookies, to see how the rookies did. Now, I know a notable number of rookies that were picked early are injured or are just not playing. Derek Stingley did not play in this game. Neither did Kenyon Green, who's got injured during training camp. Let's see, who's the second rounders? John Mechie did not play. Christian Harris did not play. So it was a real bummer not being able to see any of those guys. But who we did see was the safety defensive back, Jalen Petrie, who did very good. And Dameon Pierce, the 4th round running back, who did even better. Watching Dameon Pierce run was the highlight of the whole game, I think, for me, because as a Texans fan, you never see good running backs, except for that one game with Rex Burkhead at the end of the year last year. But you just don't ever see good running backs the past 2 years. And seeing Dameon Pierce gave me so much hope because I kind of knew, after looking at the draft boards and everything, looking at highlights of the running backs, I'm like, Dameon Pierce is definitely the guy that we need to go after in this draft because we don't need to spend a high draft pick on Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall. And the fact that he fell all the way to the 4th round and we were able to take him made me feel so good because I'm like, this guy looks almost like as good as those two. I think was it Breece Hall, who was the 2nd rounder. He looked as good as them, and he has a good potential. He ran for 5 times, and he had 49 yards, which is 9.8 yards per attempt. If I'm doing the math right, I am. And he had a 20-yard run, first run of the game, for him, first run of the game for him. And it was at 20 yards. If you see his feet move, I might play a clip. His feet are just like, they're like, he's literally floating. He's dancing on the field. It looks incredible. And I want to see him do stuff like that. Even when the blocking isn't there, he might be the perfect person to work around all the Texans' flaws as far as getting a good offensive line and being able to play in spite of a bad offensive line. Now, we still need to fix the O-line because imagine what he does with all starters, with Kenyon Green, Laramie Tunsil, and Titus Howard, at least on that line. And then I don't know who's on center. Do we have a center? I'll go look it up after this video and then put a little thing up and apologize in the thing for not remembering and not doing my notes. But yeah, whenever we have Dameon Pierce, so here's what I think the plan's going to be. For the next maybe next year, maybe this season and the next season, we might not play Pierce as much. We might let Marlon Mack take most of the carries and then give Pierce kind of like the Tony Pollard role. Because think about how that dynamic's working in Dallas right now. Ezekiel Elliott may not have his big numbers. He's kind of the workhorse, so that Pollard can come in and make the big plays whenever it really matters. And I think eventually Tony Pollard is going to take over the main role, but they don't want to batter him down and hurt him now while he's got so much fuel left in his tank for further games down the road. Think about what they did with Derrick Henry in Tennessee, the Tennessee Titans. They drafted him in the first round. They didn't play him very much. He was getting about 10 yards per game, or 10 carries per game. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, boom, they give him 20 plus carries every single game. He gets 2,000 yards. He's playing incredible. And it's just about waiting until, one, your team is ready to compete, and then two, making sure that they're not getting injured early in their career and it's derailing how they perform later. Which is good that he's a late round pick because that expectation's already there. And I think he's going to be someone really good for the Texans if he can keep this going. And, I really want to see more of Dameon Pierce this year. I feel like he's going to be a big highlight of this draft and of this season, even if he doesn't play as big of a role this season as some of our other players. Now, Jalen Petrie, the safety, was also very good. He was picked in the second round this year, and he played really good. He had less snaps, I think. Well, obviously, he played less snaps than most of the players, but I think in the first quarter he had a really good tackle for loss where he snuck around the back of the blockers. It was a run out to the right, and he tackled them for a loss and a really good play. It was like a low kind of hit where he went for the legs and kind of tripped him up, which looked really, really great technique-wise, And so it's great to see that these young rookies are already showing the stardom and the impact, like the the impact that they can have in the game and in the league at this low level. As far as like best running backs, this for the week 1 of the preseason game, Dameon Pierce #1. That's how I feel. He had 5 carries and not a single one looked bad. Every single one he fought for every yard he got, and he got like I said, 9.8 yards per run. That's great. I think it's great. Which I guess doing the math, 20. This is how my mind works. I like to do the math on everything. 20 yards on the first carry. So then he has 30 yards over the next 4 carries. That's like 7 yards per carry on the rest of those. I don't think he had a run less than 5 yards. And that's incredible. That's great. It's a small sample size, but just seeing that he has the fire in him to try and do something and try and prove himself, even if it's not, in a season game. Hopefully he doesn't lose that fire, because I know if we were to give him the starting job and he just goes, I have the starting job, I'll just kind of tuck and run and kind of fall down at the line of scrimmage just so I don't get hurt. We don't want him to get hurt, but we don't want him to lose the fire either. It's a nice balance that the team has to maintain, that he has to maintain himself. And I think that he definitely has a lot of potential. And you know what? I'll show a little clip here. This is what Dameon Pierce is capable of in just a few short years. I'm currently playing as Dameon Pierce on Madden. It was a create your own Madden character. And it's too easy on Madden playing as a running back. Like, I can literally break as many tackles as I want. But this is what I think Dameon Pierce is going to be like in just 2 years. Mm-hmm. And we won't even need a quarterback at all. We'll just run the whole game. He'll never get injured. He'll never fumble. That's why I love Madden. It's too easy to cheat. And I love cheating. I like when things are easy. No, nobody clip that in the future. And, I don't want to eat my words because of that. That'd be really awkward trying to explain, like, if I get into some trouble, which I'm not going to get into any trouble. But if I were to get in some trouble and they go, so don't clip, don't remember this. Don't remember this moment. All right, moving on. We have more news, more, interesting stuff about the preseason. I want to kind of this is kind of a Texans themed episode. I'm going to be covering a lot of Texans stuff. So if you're like, here for all the round NFL news, You can still learn stuff because this is sort of learning lessons from what the Texans are doing, but it's just basically what I was, paying attention to. So obviously, this just today, a lot of players got cut because the sort of standard for the NFL is after preseason week one, you cut down to 85 players down from 90, and so a lot of players were getting cut. The Texans got rid of Chad Beebe. That's one of the players that got cut, and I'm sure that was a lot of people were a fan of that guy, but unfortunately he got cut. Very sad. Now another person that got cut around the league, and by cut I don't mean they're waiving him. They're saying get off of our team and or go down to the practice squad. They'll probably sign a lot of the guys back to the practice squad eventually. But yeah, they're cutting them, removing them from the team. One guy was someone that the Chiefs traded for from Houston. So he's the Texans player, and the Chiefs traded for him, and it was Lonnie Johnson Jr., the cornerback that the Texans drafted as a second-round pick. I think it was 4 years ago. And Lonnie Johnson, he never really hit his potential as a Texan. It was kind of the Texans' fault, a little bit of it, because they switched him to safety in like his second year, and it did not work at all. And so then Lovie Smith moved him back to cornerback. And there's like a little, whatever. There's a speck of black on my light ring. I'm sure it really reduced the quality of the lighting. I'm sure the one tiny speck. So Lonnie Johnson was unfortunately cut from the Chiefs following preseason week one. And it was very sad because I saw his tweet. I follow him on Twitter. I saw his tweet where he's like, it was great to be back on the field. I'm ready to keep working hard and, get. And it's just sad to see that they immediately turn to him and say, hey, you're not going to be with us anymore. And that's, I don't know how I would deal with that. He dealt with it. He tweeted more stuff. He's pretty active on Twitter. And he tweeted stuff like it's all part of God's plan, and that's good. I do think that obviously if God planned for him to be in the NFL, then that's what he's going to do, and it's good. The Chiefs' reasoning, Andy Reid's reasoning for cutting him week one is not that he's necessarily as bad as like some other guys. It's just that they want to give him ample time to find a new team and to join, and to learn their system before the regular season comes around. Because if they cut him in the bye week, preseason week 4, where they don't play, nobody plays week 4. If they cut him then, he only has like half a week to learn whatever new team he signs to, whatever their offense or whatever their defense is. And so if they cut him now, he has a lot more time. He's got like 2 or 3 weeks to learn their offense or their defense. Why do I keep saying offense? Learn their schemes and everything before, the regular season comes around. So if he does want to be a starter. So that's the difference. Is last year, Lonnie Johnson was like the number 2 cornerback for us. He was a starter. And on a team like the Chiefs, who's like, going to the AFC Championship every year, for them, Lonnie Johnson is a week 1 preseason cut. That just shows kind of the parity between what the Texans were last year and what the Chiefs were, or what the Chiefs are this year. And that's just sort of the sad part of the parity of how bad the Texans are compared to real contenders. That's changing, obviously. We traded Lonnie Johnson. I actually don't know what we traded him for. Every tweet I read, it didn't ever say what he was traded for. It would just say he was traded, in the Chiefs he was traded. That's the thing. That's another thing. Why would you? Okay, it was for a conditional 7th round pick. So at this point, we're not getting that 7th round pick, unfortunately. So essentially, we just cut him. They picked him up, and then they cut him, which is kind of annoying. I know maybe he wasn't the best cornerback, but he also wasn't the worst. He was at least somewhat consistently okay, And so maybe we'll pick him up again. I doubt it. He's probably going to find some other place to go and be mediocre. But that's another thing. Like, how do you trade for? I guess with that answers my question. My earlier question was going to be, how do you trade for somebody, give up a draft pick, and then just end up cutting them, and being like, oh, okay, well, we wasted a draft pick for nothing. But I guess for them, they're not really losing anything because it was a conditional seventh round pick, and I'm sure that condition included play time. He has to like actually play a snap for them or something, and so I doubt that seventh round pick is actually going to go through. And that's not a loss either. I'm sure whatever seventh round pick excuse me, whatever pick they were going to use, whatever player they would have picked, the Chiefs probably would have cut him too in the preseason, because it's hard to be a good NFL player even when you get drafted. That's actually, it kind of reminds me of what happened last year with Benardrick McKinney, BMAC. The Texans linebacker. He was always like really good, and he got injured the season before, and so we traded him to Miami for a different linebacker who I'm blanking on the name, but I remember him being he basically had like an almost identical play style to Benardrick McKinney, and I don't know why we traded. It was Shaq Lawson. That's who it was. To the Dolphins sent Shaq Lawson. We sent BMAC. And it was kind of a weird trade, like, linebacker for a linebacker, no picks. And then before the regular season had even started, they had cut Benardrick McKinney, and we had cut Shaq Lawson. And so it was basically the most pointless trade I've ever seen, because we just cut each other's players. I don't know what to say about it. I guess we both thought the other had potential. So like the Dolphins thought that BMAC had potential, and we thought that Shaq Lawson had potential. They both knew that they were lacking in their abilities, and they were asking for too much money. So we sent them to each other, and they ended up both being not as good as we were hoping for each other, and so they cut both. Very odd stuff. That's just sort of the life of the NFL. You don't ever know if you're waking up one day and they're saying, hey, you're not good enough. Your peers are better than you are, which that just must be heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to anybody who has their dreams crushed by some soulless GM who thinks that they could just cut whoever they want. So good luck to you, Lonnie Johnson, on finding a new team. I really hope that there is a spot for you somewhere out there in the NFL to, flourish, because I do like your tweets. All right, next topic is we're talking about Deshaun Watson. Ooh, the boogeyman of this podcast. So first thing, Deshaun Watson's playoff game was bad. He started for the Browns. I guess they're trying to get his feet wet a little bit as a Brown, kind of get him in front of a crowd and gauge the crowd's reaction. And of course, they were chanting terrible stuff at him, which I don't support, saying bad words. But anyway, he did, shortly before the first preseason game, he did apologize to, what was the apology exactly? He apologized to women in general. He's like, for all the women, it was one of those fake apologies where it's like, he says, I'm sorry that you felt bad by my actions, rather than I'm sorry for my actions. He was like, I apologize to all the women I'm truly sorry to all the women that I've impacted in this situation, rather than like, I'm truly sorry for my actions. I guess to him, he's still innocent. He's just like, it was a what's the word? Misinterpretation, misconceived sort of thing where, anyway, I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to talk too much about the topic. I will talk a lot more about Deshaun Watson in this next segment, because Deshaun Watson is likely going to be facing a big penalty, money-wise and game-wise, a suspension in the NFL because of all this bad publicity that he's caused for the league. And so Deshaun Watson, I've read a tweet that he tried to make an offer to the NFL to settle after like just a couple weeks ago, or just a couple days ago, and it's looking like it's a little too late now. But what he was trying to do, so the first time, Deshaun Watson, he was one of those fake apologies where it's like, it was a miss, what's the word? Misinterpretation, or misinterpretation, so the first time before Judge Sue L. Robinson came and gave. Oh man, I just got a notification that the Astros lost. Man, I was watching that game. They were 2-0 for 8 innings, and then they totally blew the game wide open in the eighth inning. That's annoying. Whatever. So the Astros just lost. Back to the Deshaun Watson topic. That's like the first time I've talked about the Astros on this podcast this whole time. I never talk about them. I'm waiting until the postseason. There's really nothing too interesting about about MLB until the postseason, or unless obviously it's a big thing if all stars get picked, or if someone looks like they're really ahead, or there's a really big play that you want to talk about. None of those things have really happened for the Astros, at least that I've seen, and so I haven't covered them yet. This is just sort of a recency thing. So Deshaun Watson was offered a settlement by the NFL. They said, we're not going to take this whole thing to the judge, Sue L. Robinson, and we're not going to kind of seek a really difficult punishment for you. All we're asking is for 12 games suspension and $8 to $10 million in a penalty fee. And Deshaun Watson said no to that because his camp, they didn't want him to go for anything more than 6 to 8 games, and Deshaun didn't want to pay any money at all. Which, seeing how the Browns structured his contract to basically be $200 million free dollars. Obviously, he doesn't want to miss out on any of that money, because the whole reason they did it like that, they structured it like that, was so that he was protected from losing any money, which is just that really gets me mad that they did it just specifically like that. It's like the Browns want me to strongly dislike them. I won't say hate, but they want me to strongly dislike him. So the NFL, then obviously we got the announcement or the decision from Judge Robinson that said the NFL should suspend him 6 days or 6 games. And the NFL didn't like that, so they appealed it, which is the appealing process is the most rigged thing I've ever heard. It's basically Goodell, the NFL commissioner, who is advocated for Watson to get a year or indefinite suspension. He basically gets to pick anybody he wants to hear the case, and they decide how long he gets. Which basically means he can pick himself and just say, let me hear all the facts. Oh, okay, he gets a year. Indefinite suspension. Which is very rigged, but I'm not worried about it because it's kind of in my favor, kind of what I want too. But he picked a former guy. He picked some guy. I don't know who it is. An arbitrator. Third-party guy. Again, basically we're doing the whole thing again. And we're going to basically, since it's a guy Goodell wants, he's basically going to give him a year and probably ask that he pays him a penalty also. And now Deshaun is like, oh, crap. Well, this isn't good. Either way, I think what the other option is that Deshaun is going to have to take it to court, right? And appeal their decision. That's the stupid thing about courts and stuff. It's just a lot of appealing, a lot of waiting, a lot of decisions. And it's no fun. Obviously, if you're standing watching on the sidelines, you get bored really quick. So Deshaun's trying to settle, and I think he's still asking for 8 games. And I think now he's offering the NFL, he's like, hey, I'll take 8 games. But that's it. Maybe he might be willing to go up higher. That's kind of what people are thinking. They're tying it into the fact that he asked, or that he apologized to all the women. They're tying that in to the fact that maybe he wants to get less. He's willing to go for more games, suspension, maybe even pay a penalty. He's trying to find middle ground. Well, I don't know what to think. I think that Deshaun kind of deserves whatever now is coming to him. He should have. That's the thing. He learns his lesson way too late. He should have a year ago, should have settled with the women that initially accused him. Instead, he let it all pile up and he let it turn into a year and a half long thing now. He should have settled with the NFL when they first gave him an option. He would have still $200 million, still be on a good team, just have to wait. He would still even be able to play this year. He would just only be able to play the last 5 games. or 6, depending on when their bye week, or depending on how the game system works. It probably doesn't include bye weeks. And he was just too late on both of those things. He eventually did settle with all the women, which basically makes all that waiting, all that nonsense, unnecessary. If he had just done that a year ago, everything would be fixed. Unfortunately, now he did it. Now he's done it, and he has all this problem now, and he still hasn't learned his lesson to just go ahead and settle and take whatever it costs to be able to play again, to get back on the field and get back in good graces with all the people that care and actually try to like you. Because I'm sure that I could like Deshaun Watson, and I did. For a while, I was kind of like, well, let's wait till the facts come out. And then I read through all the things that they said he did, and it was just it was overwhelming. And then now he's obviously kind of being a punk, and so I don't like him even more. And also, we need him to do badly. I need him out of the game anyway, so that the Texans can do better. Because I'm a Texans fan first, and a Watson fan probably 20 millionth. Right underneath Chad Beebe. A callback. I don't even know what position Chad Beebe plays. What am I talking about? So, yeah, Deshaun Watson, you... Oh, God. I'll use that as the thumbnail. Chad Watson. Deshaun Watson, you... Grr. All right, so... And that's going to be it. I don't know. How do I finish that segment? Deshaun Watson, he should get suspended for a whole year. That's probably what's going to happen. He might play this year and then get suspended a whole year, which would be kind of lame. But that might be what happens. So, yeah. End of segment. And that's going to be it for this episode. It was a pretty decently long episode. I had a lot to talk about. The Deshaun Watson stuff, preseason stuff. I like how I'm recapping. I like to do that. I like to kind of think through and recap everything that I just talked about. Because why not? I know I'm wearing a tank top, and you can see my armpit hair. But I don't care too much. All right, but that's going to be it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day.